Okay, so in this video, we're going to do a lesson on dialogue. My voice is slowly dying, so we're going to do a video lesson today so I don't have to repeat myself a million times. So, dialogue is the conversation between characters. Your final memoir assignment will have dialogue. It will follow a set of punctuation rules that help audiences know who is speaking and often how it is being said. And it helps readers imagine the scene and hear the conversation. So, here's an example from a comic strip. When we look at this comic strip from Calvin and Hobbes, we want to think about when it's visually, how do we know who is speaking? And how do you know, well, how that person is feeling? But our question today is what happens when you don't have pictures? So, we're going to use this example of this short comic strip from Calvin and Hobbes to convey how might we take it from pictures to writing like a story. So, we might notice that when it's in a comic, we separate with bubbles, we show emotion through bold and exclamation points. We can also see we can see their characters' facial expressions and body movements. So these are all things we need to convey through our writing since we will not have pictures. So here's an example of how we might write it in a narrative. Dad, when are we going to get a Christmas tree? Asked Calvin with a great concern. Adding another log to the fire, his dad replied nonchalantly, Oh, I don't know, probably a little after New Year's. After New Year's, Calvin exploded. Sure, we can just go up the street and pick the best tree from the neighbor's driveways, Dad responded. Calvin's eyes nearly bugged out of his head. What? Without missing a beat, Calvin's father replied, Sometimes there's still tinsel on the tree, too, and you don't even have to decorate it. We'll save time and money. Moments later, as a distraught Calvin clung desperately to her ankles, Calvin's mother rolled her eyes and sighed with exasperation. Okay, what did your dad tell you this time? So, what we're going to ask you to do is, I'm going to ask you to think about how did this narrative signal that you're switching speakers? How did they indicate the first words said by a new speaker? What did you notice about the punctuation marks? What go inside the marks? What go outside the marks? How did they display the character's attitude or emotion? And what actually is a dialogue take? So, we're going to go back to this passage. So here's how we would write it with a narrative. We notice first we have punctuation, the end marks, like this quotation mark right here. We have the question mark goes inside the quotation marks. Same thing. We've got the period that goes inside. Again, inside. We have the red. We have the dialogue tags. Asked Calvin. His dad replied. Sometimes the dialogue tags are used to show emotion, like exploded, right? We also have the idea of adding descriptions. So using bold letters, again, to show emotion, two question marks to show he's really questioning it. We also have description like bugged out, right? We have that his dad replied nonchalantly. Nonchalant is a word like, I don't care, whatever, man. So using these words within our writing to convey the same emotions that we would through pictures. When we make dialogue tags, we don't always have to use the word said. We can use other words. So if there is a better word to describe the action or emotion, use it. So if they're angry, maybe they're shouting or bellowing. If they're really affectionate, maybe they're admiring or comforting. Excited, maybe they're babbling or gushed. Fear, they might stammer or stutter. Gasp, if they're arguing, they might sneer or threaten or insinuate or spat. So don't be afraid to use different words. I'll put a word list of different words to say instead of said on Canvas. Um, you don't always have to have dialogue tags come at the beginning or the end of a line. So you don't always have to say, Mary said, I love cats, or I love cats, said Mary. Sometimes you can do what's called a split quote. So we have this example on the screen. Sure, we could just go up the street and pick the best tree from the neighbor's driveways. Dad responded as Calvin was freaking out. Sometimes there's still tinsel on the tree too, so you don't even have to decorate it. We'll save time and money. So if we notice, this first part is one sentence. We can go up the street and pick the best tree from the neighbors' driveways, comma, quote, Dad responded as Calvin was freaking out, period. Then it still continues. Sometimes there's still tinsel on the tree too, so you don't even have to decorate it. We'll save time and money. So this was all one thing that the dad said, but they split it up to make us know more about the dad's actions before we get to the end. So that is one strategy to spice up your writing. So if we look at this example, I think it's from a series of unfortunate events. We're going to compare it with another version that gives us a little bit more. So this is an example of just telling what's happening, and there isn't a lot of use of dialogue to show what's happening. So we're going to look at the first two lines. I can't say I'm surprised, Violet said. We haven't found any books in this house at all. I know, Klaus said miserably. I miss reading very much. We must go out and look for a library sometime soon. So if we look at these first two lines, yes, they have it properly punctuated. They use Violet said. That they do try to add some more information when we say Klaus said miserably. But I'm wondering if they could add more description to make us know what's happening and have us show what's happening in the scene, not just having people talk. So we look at this one. The first two lines say, I can't say I'm surprised. Violet closed the door on the last kitchen cupboard. We haven't found any books in this house at all. So in this one, we see her closing the door in the last kitchen cupboard because they're looking for books. The second sentence, I know. Klaus hung his head, staring at his toes. So here they're showing us that Klaus is miserable rather than just telling us. This is a really great strategy to immerse your reader or put your reader right in the middle of the action rather than just having them read about it. So, right now, what you're going to do is we're going to start working on our memoir assessment because remember, you will have to add dialogue in that. So, make sure that you are adding dialogue in your memoir assessment.